Oh, how I love thy law, it is my meditation all the day, all the night, morning through night. And I delight in the law of the Lord, and on his law I meditate day and night. Morning Meditations with C.J. Marshall.
Good morning. What does it take for a plant to grow? What are the conditions that it needs to flourish? Well, you need sunlight. You need to feed it water. You gotta water the plant. You sometimes have to check the soil and put new soil in. And new nourishment. What happens if you were to neglect the plant? It would start to die, right? It would start to wither away and regress. The same is true in our Christian walk. If we hold on to false philosophies, if we do all this maturing and then hold on to something that's false, we begin to die. We regress instead of progress. Peter writes in 1 Peter 3 and verse 18 that the Christian needs to grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. One thing that can cause a Christian to die is accepting a false gospel. In the book of Galatians, we've already seen how that in chapter 1, verses 8 and 9, Paul has marveled that they were so quickly moved to another gospel. But he in chapter 4 talks to them about their relationship, and doing so underscores what they would be giving up by going back under the law of Moses. Formerly, Galatians 4 verse 8. When you did not know God, you were enslaved to those that by nature are not God's. But now that you have come to know God, or rather to be known by God, how can you turn back against the weak and worthless elementary principles of the world, whose slaves you want to be once more? You observe days and months and seasons and years. I am afraid I may have labored over you in vain. Paul says, you Galatians have a relationship with God. You were enslaved. Ephesians chapter 2 talks about how we were all once formerly enslaved by our different lusts. He says you were enslaved to those that are not gods. You were worshiping your own gods. And now you have a relationship with God, and you know God in verse 9, and you have been known by God. How then can you turn back against the weak and worthless principles of the world? How can you become a slave again to those things that are not God's? Since you have freedom, It doesn't make sense, Paul says, for you to regress, to turn your back on that, to something that you know is false. Why do you want to be slaves once more? You observe days and months and seasons and years. And he even says in verse 11, I'm afraid I may have labored in vain, because the Galatian Christians were regressing. Paul says, because you are holding on to those things, my work is in vain. My work was to lead you out of those things and show you Christ. So many times when we are enlightened, when we have everything we need, like the Christians have, they were known by God and they know God, it's not enough. And when we seek to have more, that's when we start dying. That's when we start regressing. Take Paul's admonition this morning. Don't go back to the elementary principles of the world. Don't become slaves again. Verse 9. Thank you all for joining me for another episode of Morning Meditations. May we always be like the psalmist that says, oh, how I love your law. It is my meditation on the day. I'll see you next time. God bless.
Morning meditations, oh how I love thy law, it is my meditation all the day, all the night, morning through night. And I delight in the law of the Lord, and on his law I meditate day and night.